Hey everyone, today we're looking at some laws from the book of Deuteronomy. When you make a loan of any kind to your neighbor, don't go into their house to take the collateral. You must wait outside while the person to whom you're making the loan brings the collateral out to you. If the person is poor, you must not sleep in the coat given to you as collateral. Give the coat back by sunset so that your neighbor can sleep in their coat. Then they will bless you and you will be considered righteous before Yahweh your God. Do not take advantage of poor and needy workers, whether they're your fellow Israelites or immigrants who live in your land or in your towns. Pay them their wages daily before sunset because they are poor and their life depends on that pay. Otherwise, they might cry out against you to Yahweh and you would become guilty. Don't deprive an immigrant or an orphan of justice. Don't take a widow's garment as collateral. Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and Yahweh your God redeemed you from there. That's why I'm commanding you to do this. The Old Testament is just so brutal and violent and primitive. It's a good thing we've left all that behind and don't have to read it anymore, right? And also, why do people talk so much about social justice instead of just reading their Bibles? Well, obviously, some of those assumptions need to be challenged a little bit, especially when we find passages like this in Deuteronomy. One of the things we talked about at the beginning of this series is the question that Christians have dealt with for a long time of how do we read the Old Testament, especially the laws, and what do they mean for us today? Right? It shouldn't just be all or nothing, and we don't follow all of them, and I don't think we want to say we throw all of them out. We don't want to just pick and choose at random, saying, well, this supports something I already like, so I'm going to use that, and this one doesn't, so I'm going to throw that out. Instead, we interpret these commands through the lens of Christ-like love for God and for our neighbor. That's what the New Testament consistently says to do. That's what Jesus says to do, and so that's what we're going to do. So, looking at these commands today, do these show a way of, do they express love for one's neighbor? I would say yes, and in fact, a lot more than what is usually done in our society today, our modern laws and our habits. Now you can go to the surrounding chapters and find a lot of commands that would probably, I would say, fail this test of love. Things about purity, rules there that ultimately are kind of irrelevant. Laws about excluding certain people groups that I think we would say are actually unchristlike and we shouldn't follow them. So when we find commands like this that do seem to express love, what do? Do we just write them into our law books? Well, that's probably not very workable. Ancient agrarian society like this was very different from our own, but as we read them, we can ask, how can we find loving principles and let them become our way of life? How can these ancient commands challenge some of our modern customs? Can we, like these seem to be telling us to do, honor the fundamental dignity of all people, especially people like the poor and immigrants? Caring for the poor was part of Jesus' teaching, it was part of his ministry, and I'm sure that concern was partly formed by the book of Deuteronomy. For it said that justice is love out loud. So if we're going to show the kind of love that Christ calls us to, it's going to come out in the way that we show justice to our neighbors.